So, good morning. Jai Hind, Jai Hind. So, what all we discussed in the last class? We started with the Palas, then Senas, Rashtrakutas, and then Cholas, with a special attention to Chola system of local self-government, which can be separately important for us, something which has been much celebrated in our nationalist history writing. Now, let us come back to the north, and here we have some new political powers, particularly in the north and northwestern and western parts of the subcontinent, mentioned as Rajputs, a term which is quite well known to us. Now we have some theories related to the origin of Rajputs. We need to discuss them. They can give you statements related to them. Now, who were these Rajputs and what is their ancestry is something which is politically also very controversial subject, particularly when we have caste organizations, religious organizations reclaiming or claiming to construct their real history. And when we have the power of social media, on which we have many achievements, accomplishments of different caste groups. So I hope understand that this is a little risky business. But here, nothing personal. Let me clarify this first and let me add this disclaimer. Here we have some theories. One thing is clear that the term Rajput starts occurring in the Indian literature relatively, what we can say, suddenly. That is, as we move beyond the early medieval time, we find the term Rajput. I think one day we talked about Banbhat. Who was Banbhat? The man who wrote Harsh Charita. In Banbhat also we find Rajputs. Then we have a very famous work which is also regarded as the first major work of Hindi literature, attributed to Chandra Bardai. Have you ever heard of this name? Chandra Bardai, and the work is Prithviraj Raso. Prithviraj Raso, its timing is slightly again controversial, but we are not going to quote controversies unnecessarily. In Prithviraj Raso, we find some legends related to the origin of Rajputs. But here this claim is again disputed, that some clans had fire pit origin. There was a sage Vasistha, who was performing a sacrifice at Mount Abu. Mount Abu is a place in Rajasthan that is situated on the border of Gujarat, perhaps. Northwestern Rajasthan, or no, southwestern Rajasthan we can say. And then the demons were disturbing as usual, and he wanted to protect whatever he was doing. So using his tapo bal, you must have heard of, in our culture there is a bal that is called tapo bal, tapasvi. Have you ever seen a tapasvi? Don't look at me when I say this. Though I also have some tapo bal, but those powers are secret powers. They are not generally shared. So his tapobal, or that is power of his meditation or his whatever you understand, he created 4 warriors one after another from the same fire pit, and these warriors became ancestors of 4 famous Rajput clans which came to be known as fire clans, or clans having fire origin. In Hindi we call Agni Kula. We have in this list Pratiharas, the first, then we have the Parmaras, then Solankis or Chalukyas, and lastly we have Chahuan, that is with 4 arms a warrior was produced. Early 3 warriors had failed in this enterprise, but the last one, a warrior with 4 arms, succeeded in protecting the a sacrifice. And this Chauhan became the ancestor of the famous Rajput clan Chauhan, to which belonged Prithviraj Chauhan. No wonder that this myth is mentioned in Prithviraj Raso in order to celebrate not only Prithviraj Chauhan but also the dynasty. And that's why other dynasties have been included and have been given the same origin, but they have not been placed at the same pedestal. Because ultimately, who succeeded? The Chauhans and earlier dynasties or earlier warriors created by the same sage had failed in the enterprise of protecting that sacrifice. Can we rely upon such theories for understanding the origin of real historical groups in any culture? Such theories can be defended only on the basis of faith. Faith may have its own utility. Faith may have its own utility, but when we try to reconstruct history on rational principles, there is a conflict between the faith-driven theories and the rational reconstruction, and here nothing personal. But see, one day I think we discussed that even in myths and legends, some truths are revealed. Myths and legends belonging to any culture, any religion, they may not be true. They may not be true, but they may convey some light on the truths of the time, because myths and legends take shape in a particular historical context. Isn't it? Have you ever dreamt of anything except PSC and preparation and all those romantic answers that you usually give? What are your dreams? I'm talking about actual, not those dreams in which people say that dreams are those dreams which are seen with open eyes, not with closed eyes. I'm talking about the dreams with closed eyes. How many of you have this kind of dreaming on regular basis? Generally they are very absurd kind of dreams at times, unrelated. If you don't note them down early in the morning, you are going to forget. You are going to forget. If you wanted to share it with someone that I have a dream like this, but just in few minutes you are going to forget. Have you ever experienced all these kind of things? So how many of you are regular dreamers? And what come to your dreams? That is also important. I'm talking about the people who regularly dream. Is it sleep disorder? No. Have you ever dreamed like लक्ष्मीकांत एंड आर एस शर्मा आते हैं ड्रीम में? ये बुक नहीं पढ़ी. गिल्ट फॉर्मेशन इवन इन ड्रीम. सोते सोते लग गया है एनसीईआरटी बाकी. It happens. And have you ever got some insights into your subjects in dream? It happens. If you struggle with a particular theme, and when you sleep, mind is at rest. In some situations, we suddenly realize, oh, तो ये बात थी, उठ के बैठ गए. Something like this. Have you ever experienced this? No. It happens when you are regularly indulged in any kind of exercise. Okay, that is not important. What is important is do one thing. Keep writing all these dreams early in the morning. All of you. Today, in the dream, I left for coaching, which is in Karol Bagh. I missed my metro, or cab was not coming, or my Audi was not in order. That may also be a case. Not to disrespect the capitalists of this class. No? You are talking about metro. We never use metro. You might feel offended. So your Audi was not in order, so you started walking towards the coaching. Then on the way you spotted an elephant, white elephant. An elephant started chasing you. And you started running. Forgetting where the coaching is, you suddenly found yourself near Qutub complex, Qutub Minar. And you started climbing the Qutub Minar in order to avoid the elephant. Do we have this kind of absurd things in our dreams? And then suddenly what happened? Someone known to you someone known to you with a rifle in his hand, with a rifle in his hand, came to rescue you, but finally what happened? He was killed by the elephant. And then in the evening, what happened? That you reached the class, and what you found is that WSK was with horns rather, 2 or 3. And then what happened? You have written all these things. And you kept on writing such absurd dreams daily on regular basis. And one day you died, leaving your dreams on papers. Those papers survived and came to be found by the people of 25th century. Nothing actually or really happened in your life like this. Never any elephant chased you. Never you climbed the Qutub Minar. WSK was never with horns. Clear? Now people living in 25th century are trying to capture or trying to reconstruct or trying to write the history of the first quarter of 21st century. Do you think your diary can serve some purpose? No. It was not truth. No true story. No true story. But this myth, this legend, which is unreal, may throw light on some realities of this time, isn't it? That people there may write history like this, कि during that time, that is first quarter of the 21st century, there used to be coaching institutes for civil services. One such coaching institute was Vision. You have mentioned in your dream that elephants are usually black, but in my dream, the elephant was white. Don't you think that your diary can be used also for writing natural history? Animals, plants, species, that is history of biodiversity can also be written on that basis. Don't you think that people of 25th century may know about the different modes of transportation existing in 21st century? Because in your dream you have mentioned metro, you have mentioned buses, you have mentioned also your Audi, isn't it? So nothing happened in reality in your life, but this myth that you constructed or your mind constructed when you were sleeping. Only or can be utilized by future historians to find some realities of the 21st century or not. Things, ideas, objects first become part of our reality and then they enter our dreams. Without becoming part of our realities, they can't enter dreams. Can we expect mobile phones in the dream of Akbar? By any stretch of imagination, that Akbar in his dream found that his mobile was captured by Jodhabai, and then he was worried about his password, whether it was known to her or not. Finally Jodhabai got the password and then came to see what Akbar was seeing a little earlier. And then there were grudges, there were fights. I'm not talking about me, I'm talking about Akbar. So don't look at me like this. Human mind can construct realities which may not belong to them. Getting this idea? So can we expect Birbal with what we can say a 10 gun machine gun firing on Pakistan? Though he was sent to that area to fight some battles. Can we expect such dreams? Do we find elephants, horses in our dreams in the same manner as are expected to have been present in the dreams of Akbar and Birbal? Do we fight battles with shield and sword today? Quite often we don't. Why? Because they are not part of our reality. So there is a very close connection between reality, something which is real, and something which is unreal. Now UPSC can ask you questions like this: to what extent myths and legends can be relied upon for historical reconstruction? It was not a story. Go through the question papers. Find importance of myths and legends. It may be important for essay writing also. And UPSC has been asking questions on abstract lines, something related to the philosophy of history. So likewise, in any culture, we have many legends, many stories, many myths, some of them enjoying even religious sanctity. I'm not trying to, or I'm not going to name them in order to avoid controversies. But let me tell you that they belong to all the religions, many legends. And historically speaking, rationally speaking, they cannot be accepted as truths. But then we can also accept, or we have to accept, that despite being unreal, they may throw light on the realities of some a time. So suppose in a particular story, rulers are mentioned. So can we contemplate state formation at that time? If we have presentation of an ideal family with duties and responsibilities fixed for every member of the family, that may not be true. That may not be true, but then at least we can know about the family norms and values or not. That why, how a wife was expected to behave, what were the roles of a younger brother. Getting this idea? And suppose if a person had 4 wives, so we can say that there were what? Polygamy or not, at least among the ruling classes. So myths and legends themselves may not be true, but they may convey, they may throw some light on the truths of the time. And here truths of the time means they may throw light on the context in which they took shape. And that is their historical utility. That's why they are utilized as a source of a history. Is this position clear? So this myth or this legend, which is associated with the origin of the Rajputs, current affairs class is clashing with this. Clashing with this current affair class? Going on somewhere simultaneously. Okay. But here I can't help. Here I can't help. So those people who are interested in current affairs may attend current affairs classes, and those people who are interested in current affairs of the past. Even historical affairs once upon a time had been current affairs, and current affairs of today going to be part of historical events of the future. And basically you people, while attending current affairs classes, are attending basic history classes as history is unfolding itself. That you are at the frontier of history. The same story is going to be part of what? So history in its scope includes not only past but also present and future. We all are part of history. We are moving along with history. We are being shaped by history. We are shaping history through our day-to-day efforts. So history is not a dead discipline as is popularly believed. If you consider history to be related only to past and a dead discipline which deals with the past events which have no significance, you are not understanding history properly. And this is not glorification of history. History is the process of evolution, and we are still evolving. We are still evolving. Our society is evolving. Our polity is evolving. We have addition of new dimensions, new dynamics, and all those new dimensions and dynamics are also part of a history. So history includes even future. So it is not the case that we are living on an island of present and we are observing the past. No, that is not the case. We are part of the process of history, and we are participating in the process of historical evolution on day-to-day basis, on a regular basis. Anyway, So current affairs not completely disassociate, and go through the question papers. Most of the time in history and culture section you will find questions which appear to be quite strange having some current connection, isn't it? And that's why we suggest you to stick to the basic books, and then general understanding, that is conceptual understanding, and then just stick to the current, and that will serve the purpose. And learn this art of linking current with what we can say the affairs of the past, and utilizing the past for understanding the present. So this myth that is associated with the Rajputs and their origin may not be true. I'm still saying may. Getting this idea? May not be true, but still it can convey some light on the truths of the origin of the Rajputs. What are those truths which are being exposed by this myth of the origin of the Rajputs? Any idea? Fire god was worshipped. If not fire god was worshipped, we can say that fire was sacred. Fire was sacred, and system of sacrifices is still prevalent. System of sacrifices is still prevalent, and there was some conflict between the people who represented the mainstream with their fire pits and system of sacrifices, and the people who are not liking these sacrifices, who are presented as demons. Otherwise we also know that the whole idea of demon is supernatural. So the people who are mentioned as Rakshasas in our literature, ancient literature, they may not actually be the Rakshasas, supernatural creatures. They may be different groups of human beings living at different stages of cultural development, not subscribing to what we can say certain ideas, or not adhering to some practices. So they are declared as demons, and this we do in our day-to-day life. Suppose if I don't leave you exactly at 12 and the class is stretched to 12:30, not 12:30 but 1, so we will start saying teacher nahi Rakshas hai ye. So now see, a faculty of vision perceived as demon just because some rules or some norms have been violated. So in every society we have some well accepted norms and values, and whenever we have some deviations from those norms and values, we become very judgmental, and we start characterizing, we start finding out the characteristics which are presenting a contrast to our own behavior model, and then we declare them to be demonic and something else. So the conflict which is presented, that the people who are disturbing this sage whose name is Vasistha, may be the people, maybe some tribal groups in that area, resisting fresh encroachments or fresh arrivals or introduction of some new beliefs and practices, some new rituals. All these things can be constructed or not. What else can be constructed? Symbolic marriage. Symbolic marriage. Marriages are symbolic. Marriage with sword. Talwar se shadi. That was prevalent among the societies with male dominated ideals and values. And bravery was supposed to be what? An attribute of, the most valuable attribute of being man. ठीक है? So I am not important. What is important is my sword. So many women got married to the sword. Sword भेज दिया, तलवार से शादी करा के भेज देना उसको. आज कर सकते हो? आज कर लो जरा. चाकू भेज दो छोटा सा. उससे शादी करके आ जाना. ऐसी गालियां आएंगी उधर से, because today we don't believe in that kind of patriarchy and male domination. Women now claiming partnership, equal partnership, care, concern. तो तुम्हारे पास अगर इतना भी टाइम नहीं है तो तुम भूल ही जाओ, मत करो शादी, हम कर लेंगे लोटा से. That was also a tradition. It is marriage with lota, if not with sword. So, तुम्हारे पास इतना टाइम नहीं है, तलवार भिजवा रहे हो, तो फिर शादी के बाद तुम क्या करोगे? ठीक है? And then gone are the days when women valorized or what glorified as sacrificing creatures, and they try to behave or they try to conform to those idols. Now things are different. So today, can you send something like this? World is changing. So how many Rajputs are there? Let me ask this controversial question in this class. Anyone with fire origin? That is belonging to Chauhans, Parmars or Solankis or Chalukyas and Pratiharas. Any Pratihar here? Anyone joining some social media group for championing the cause of fire clan? No. Some khap, some panchayat groups? No. Then that means you are not having the real education. You are not being exposed to the real history. Things are quite complicated. So see here, one thing is also evident, that generally among the ruling classes, we have construction of glorious lineages in order to seek legitimacy. So when we have Balban, a medieval ruler, on the throne of Delhi Sultanate, and he tried to reassert the authority of the king, or he tried to legitimize the superior position of the king, he constructed a glorious lineage. And he claimed that he is descendant of Afrasiab. Afrasiab, a legendary Persian ruler whose descendants enjoyed greater degrees of legitimacy in Central Asian and West Asian political traditions. Clear? Don't you think this is something that we try to do even today? We link ourselves with the things which are more legitimate, isn't it? So the same tendency we find among the ruling classes. Shivaji, Maratha leader, claimed that he was Kshatriya. Marathas traditionally not part of the Kshatriya, and even today many Marathas may not perceive themselves as a Kshatriya. But Shivaji declared himself to be a Kshatriya, and that too belonging to the Sisodia clan, to which we have the association of Rana Pratap. So can it be accepted as a measure for seeking legitimacy, acceptability? Political power is established not only on the basis of what we can say brute or military force, but also on the basis of the force of ideology. And in traditional societies, lineages, glorious lineages played very important role. So many rulers have relied upon them. Mughals, they traced their ancestries back to both the Central Asian heroes Genghis Khan and Taimur. Most of the time such ancestries were mythical ancestry, or very remotely constructed. So when you have a member of parliament from your constituency, and then you won the election, so many people will be there who would be tracing their ancestry or their connections or exploring their connections with you. वो मेंबर वो पार्लियामेंट, वो मेरे फूफा जी के छोटे भाई जो है ना, मेरे फूफा जी के छोटे भाई की जो ननद है, भाई की ननद नहीं होती, मतलब जो भी हो, उनकी जो वो है ना, उसके जो बहनोई हैं, उसके जीजा जी के बेटे हैं. And my family is well connected political family, though the connection is a little remote, which is beyond my comprehension, but my family is a very political family. और ये जो फर्स्ट चीफ मिनिस्टर थे बिहार के, देखिए वो मेरे दादाजी के बाबा जी के जो दोस्त थे ना, उनके जानने वाले थे. जानने वाले तो पूरे बिहार के थे. That is another reason. So something that we find today as part of general human tendencies, we find in history also. That rulers, dynasties with construction of glorious lineages. And sometimes those lineages may appear real, sometimes they may appear mythical. When mythical, people say that people are trying to hide something. People are trying to hide something, or maybe the group was relatively new. Group was relatively new and could not find any, what we can say, well developed tradition related to ancestry. So some mythical origin was given to this. Some mythical origin given to this. It happens. So this supports another theory, and that is foreign origin of Rajputs. That Rajputs were descendants of foreign invaders who came to India, particularly in the post-Gupta time, like Hunas and Gurjaras. Gurjar, a clan of Rajputs, even today. Hunas. Have you ever heard of Hunas? And that's why in the traditional literature we don't find their references. And these people came to be well established as part of ruling classes in the north, western and western parts of the subcontinent, always exposed to foreign invasions. And then once they came to be assimilated into the Indian society, they started constructing their lineages. And some traced their ancestry to the ancestry of ancient Kshatriyas also. That was for legitimacy. Ancient Kshatriyas. And then you must have heard of Suryavanshi, Chandravanshi, solar dynasties, lunar dynasties. I am not making any comment. I am leaving to your mind to construct whether this kind of ancestry is possible or not. Rationally not possible. Theoretically maybe or possible. Sun is planet. Sun का बेटा कोई कैसे हो सकता? I hope understand this. ठीक है. चांद is चांद. ठीक है. चांद का कोई बेटा, हाँ कोई चांद हो सकता है. Look at me. ठीक है. Don't look at the upper part, okay? लेकिन चांद का रिश्तेदार कैसे हो सकता है? Yes, हो सकता है. Myths and legends. Myths and legends. And they have their own utility. And they are found in every culture. They have their own utility. Likewise, in many religions we find some certain things which cannot be defended when we apply our rational mind. And that's why we rely upon faith. We rely upon faith. Since faith is on rise, we are not going to take panga with faith. So let us change this topic and let us move on. And we can say that maybe this theory is supporting the foreign origin of Rajputs, because even in Manu Smriti, an old text which was written at a time when we have arrival of Indo-Greeks, Kushanas and others, we have mention of Kshatriyas who were fallen Kshatriyas, that is Vratya Kshatriyas. So Manu Smriti accepts that they had been Kshatriyas, but what kind of Kshatriyas? Fallen Kshatriyas, disgraced Kshatriyas, and if they want to restore their previous position, they need to make some sacrifices, they need to perform some rituals. It means there were purifying rituals, a tradition of performance of purifying rituals in our culture before incorporating certain classes into the Indian social structure. So maybe sage Vasishtha and his sacrifice was one such purifying ritual. Getting this idea? All these things can be contemplated. Then there are people who say ki that is not the case. The Rajputs were really the descendants of the Kshatriyas. But then the term Rajput not found in the old texts. And if we go to the old time, we find that not only Kshatriyas but other social classes also belong to the ruling classes. Though Varna system did not permit Brahmanas to be the rulers, but we have Brahman ruling dynasties. We have Satavahanas as Brahmans, we have Sungas as Brahmans, and many dynasties claimed the status of Brahmanas. We have Shudra dynasty. Nanda dynasty was Shudra dynasty. We have Vaishya dynasty. It means if we accept this term, that is Rajputra, that is son of Raja. So Rajputra may not have been, may not be only a distinction on the part of the Kshatriyas. It may be a distinction also on the part of son of a Vaishya if belong to a ruling clan. So the Rajputra was of general use, but maybe in the early medieval time the same term was converted as Rajput. So they were descendants of the older ruling classes, we can say, not necessarily of the Kshatriyas. Some of them may have Brahman origins, Vaishya origins also, because if Rajput word is interpreted like this, that Rajput of the early medieval is corrupt form of Rajputra of the ancient, then Rajputras of the ancient belong to different social classes and not necessarily only to the Kshatriyas. So these are some just theories, and never ending debates and discussions are going on related to them. At times people are driven by rationality, at times they are driven by emotions, and emotions are also important because life cannot be understood only by reason and rationality. We are affected by emotions, that is postmodern consciousness and critique of reason, that is totality of existence cannot be understood by reliance upon what is known as pure reason. Otherwise, see, God may not be real. I'm talking about God or gods, they may not be real, but don't you think that their impact on our life is real? So if we discard the notion of God or gods because they are not real according to modern sciences, many aspects of human behavior in the real life cannot be understood. The ghosts and spirits, have you ever heard of bhoots, pisachs, WSKs? No, never heard of. They may not be real, but their impact is real. So you can have a book of physics which believes in reality, and you are moving out of your home in the midnight, in darkness, and all your senses are saying that someone is behind you. Someone is behind you, and your body is also coming up with some responses to cope up with those challenges. रोंगटे खड़े हो रहे, सनसनाहट, there is something. And the book of physics is saying that such things don't exist. So how to understand, how to explain that behavior? So faith has its own utility, emotional constructions may have their own utility. There is no denying the fact, but then when we talk about history as a discipline of social sciences, we follow scientific approach. And scientific approach accept faith. Scientific approach is not about denying the faith. Scientific approach is accepting the faith as faith. Getting this idea? Accept the myth as myth. Accept the religion as religion. Accept the faith as a faith. Don't try to prove it as a scientific truth, because then science have different tests for reality. And on that tests, many myths, legends, and many religions of the world, almost all the religions of the world, are going to fail. They may have certain things which may have some relation with sciences or may appear as scientific, but the whole idea of faith or religion or supernatural may not withstand the test of modern science. And that's why it is not the case ki my God is more real than yours or your God is more real than mine. All gods are at the same place because all need what? Faith. Without faith we cannot sustain them. So there is a term in Hindi that is called कि हमाम में सभी नंगे हैं. ठीक है, तो सब देवता एक ही बराबर हैं. ठीक है, सारे रिलीजन्स के गॉड एक ही पेडेस्टल पे हैं, बिकॉज रिलीजन्स हिस्टोरिकली स्पीकिंग कंस्ट्रक्टेड बाय ह्यूमन माइंड एज अ साइकोलॉजिकल डिवाइस. दैट इज वेरी यूजफुल डिवाइस. Many people are living their life very peacefully because of their faith or relying upon their faith. Faith may foster friendship also. It may be associated with social bondages. At times it may be associated with social conflicts also. But then even science can be put to destructive uses. That is another issue, another case. So just write few lines now about their origin. Right? In the early medieval time, we are making a heading Rajputs or Rajput dynasties. In the early medieval time, we find some new ruling dynasties. In the northwestern and western. Some new ruling dynasties in the northwestern and western parts, northwestern and western parts of the subcontinent, mentioned as Rajput dynasties, mentioned as Rajput dynasties. Their 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 origin their origin their origin appears to be a relatively sudden development. Their origin appears to be a relatively sudden development. Their origin appears to be a relatively sudden development, which has been explained differently, which has been explained differently. Some of the explanations are mentioned below. Some of the explanations are mentioned below. Some of the explanations are mentioned below, and all these explanations we have already discussed may have their limitations. Right, first point. Descendants of the ancient Kshatriyas. Descendants of the ancient Kshatriyas. We know the limitation of this theory, but there are many clans believing in this. Descendants of the ancient Kshatriyas. Second point. Descendants of the foreign invaders. Descendants of the foreign invaders like Hunas and Gurjaras. Like Hunas and Gurjaras. Like Hunas and Gurjaras. Clear? Then write next. Next to write fire pit origin. Fire pit origin. That is mythical origin. Fire pit origin, mythical origin, which seems to support the theory of foreign origin, which seems to support the theory of foreign origin, seems to support the theory of foreign origin. We have understood it in what way? That mythical ancestry constructed, it means real ancestry was missing on the soil. Then write next. Product of, that is Rajput clans were product of a very complicated socio-economic and political process all at the same time. Very complicated socio-economic and political process involving extension of agriculture, in new areas, extension of agriculture in new areas, because for state formation agriculture is needed. Extension of agriculture in new areas, comma, new patterns of social differentiation and stratification, new patterns of social differentiation and stratification, new patterns of social differentiation and stratification, and new theories for political legitimacy, new theories for political legitimacy. new theories for political legitimacy. Do you understand this process? In the modern time, we have a very famous sociologist. We had rather, perhaps he is not alive, M.N. Srinivas or Srinivasan. And he has come up with a theory which is very famous in social sciences. Can you tell me the name of that theory? Sanskritization. Sanskritization. What is Sanskritization? Yes, that involves, here we don't have abolitionist approach. Sanskritization accepts the hierarchy and extends further legitimacy to it. Further legitimacy, but it tries, here in Sanskritization, social groups try to raise their position in the same hierarchy by following or by imitating the behavior, norms, values and taboos also of the people who are perceived as socially superior. So suppose a new social group claiming the status of Brahman, and suppose the widow remarriage does not take place in Brahmins. So that new group would be imposing restrictions on widow remarriage. Getting this idea? That is what? Imitating the taboos also. So if Brahmins are non-vegetarian, vegetarian. In my area in Bihar, we have Jha Brahmins. They are never vegetarians. They are non-vegetarians, or what in Hindi we call Ghor Mansahari. Ghor Mansahari. I have many friends, Jha, and can you imagine a situation that a Brahman is teaching a Pathan how to cook chicken? Okay. And how to eat it, and how much, and how to digest it more properly. Because they have different asanas, that is Brahmanical expertise involved in digestion of chicken. So we have what kind of asan? There is a asan. One of my friend told me, खान साहब कितना भी खा लो आप, बिल्कुल टेंशन मत लो, 15 मिनट बैठो इस आसन में, ठीक है, सब भस्म हो जाएगा. Our country is land of diversity. So it is not that Brahmanas are always what we can say vegetarian. We have non-vegetarianism very strong in certain pockets. So let us assume that you are not aspiring to become a Jha Brahman. You are aspiring to become any other Brahman, and in that group vegetarianism is the norm. So what you are going to do? You are also going to adopt vegetarianism, and you will start hating non-veg dishes. Chicken, mutton, rakshas, kaise kha lete ho tum? How many of you are vegetarians here? Vegetarians. How many of you are non-vegetarians? Almost equal. Non-veg. And how many of you are Ghor Mansahari? That is, bilkul. You can, Ghor Mansahari. आप भी लुक से तो लग रहा था आप पनीर से आगे बढ़ते नहीं हो. See the land of cultural diversity. See the appearance. Don't take it personally, but appearance are what? They can be deceptive also. घोर मांसाहारी. तो और वो कितने हैं जो नॉनवेज का, वेजिटेरियन नॉनवेज नहीं खाने का फ्रस्ट्रेशन उस पे निकालते हैं, सोयाबीन पे निकालते हैं या कटहल पे निकालते हैं. Do you know kathal is a vegetable. Kathal is a vegetable which is cooked in the same style as we cook meat, ठीक है, and then eaten with same zeal. कैसा लग रहा है? मीट जैसा लग रहा है. कटहल कितने लोग खाते हैं? कटहल एज अ वेजिटेबल. और कटहल एज अ फ्रूट, हाउ मेनी ऑफ यू? कटहल एज अ फ्रूट. Mainly in rice eating areas, kathal is used as a fruit. By the way, you understand what is kathal? Jackfruit. Jackfruit is a kathal. And सोयाबीन नया निकला है ना, सोया चाप. हड्डी नहीं खा सकते, लकड़ी लगा के कुकुर. Some deep rooted desire may be there कि चिकन कैसा लगता होगा, but then taboos are also there. Can't eat because socially, religiously, ethically, morally may not be perceived as a correct behavior. So whatever be the case, Sanskritization is imitating the behavior of the social groups placed in a superior, perceived superior position, and on the basis of that imitation, raising your own social status in the same hierarchy without challenging the hierarchy. This happened, or this is something which is mainly related to modern India, when we have emergence of new industrial towns and cities, and people have started migrating, and when we have a spread of new education, modern education. So we have now well educated, economically well off social groups, and they started what? Disassociating themselves from the parent group. So suppose you may be knowing about some industrial towns and cities, Bokaro, Bhilai, have you heard of? So many people migrating towards those cities. So now nobody knew in the new city about their actual ancestry, real ancestry. So in the new town, new city, claiming what? New kind of ancestry, new kind of social status. So with new education, with new wealth, some aspirations for new social respect, recognition. So these groups generally tended to disassociate themselves from the parent group, and they started aspiring for new social status, which was likely to be more in harmony with their newly acquired economic status or educational status. Now imagine that the same thing is happening in the ancient time. But in ancient time we don't have industries, but we do have agriculture. So there can be extension of agriculture in new areas. Some societies may now live settled life, and with agriculture we have surplus production, and with surplus production we can have social differentiation, social stratification, and we can have emergence of new ruling classes. It may be part of proliferation of estate formation also, and new ruling classes now in the need of new sources of legitimacy for their rule. So they now claiming their ancestry back to the ancient Kshatriyas, and came to be known as Rajputs. This is also one theory. Is this understood? It was basically reconstruction of new social identities, or construction of new social identities in the light of changing socio-economic status on the part of some social groups. Is this position clear? So these are the important theories. Now do one thing. Change your paragraph and write something more. See, we have around 36 clans of Rajputs. All of them are not equally important for us. Some of them may be important, but not in terms of their rulers and their, what we can say, their order. Just some events related to the early medieval time that may be important. If we take note of their society, their economy, their polity, all according to feudal system. We are going to talk about feudalism very soon. So we are going to have general gravy, that is Indian feudalism, in which we can place all the Rajput dynasties, all the early medieval dynasties, whenever there is any question related to their economy and or society or their culture. So here you write, the Rajput societies were first studied by, we are talking about modern historiography. Not the onset, but we can say that Rajputs represented the classical phase of Indian feudalism. If feudalism is about political decentralization, if feudalism is about erosion of royal authority, if feudalism is about local pockets of power, we can trace its origin to the age of Satavahanas, when we have new kind of land grants. But that was the beginning. That was the beginning. After this, land grants as well as local resistance both became prominent. Yes. It was not that the Rajputs were introducing these things. No, Rajputs were simply behaving in the manner of the time. Clear? That is the case. So right here the Rajput societies were first studied by the Rajput societies were first studied by Colonel Colonel. He was a scholar. Can you tell me the name of this person? Todd, T-O-D-D, double D or single D? Just find out on your own. Colonel Todd. Todd is what? Medhak. No. T-O-D. Colonel Todd. T-O-D. According to him, or what he found is generally accepted. According to him, the Rajput societies were clan, C-L-A-N, clan based societies. Rajput societies were clan based societies. Clan is Kula, clan based societies in which the clan hierarchy came to overlap with the landed hierarchy. Clan hierarchy came to overlap with the landed hierarchy associated with the feudal order of the medieval ages. That is, we can also write early medieval, but write feudal order of the medieval ages. Then write now what is clan hierarchy? Right, the historians like R.S. Sharma, and R.S. Sharma has written a book, Indian Feudalism. Historians like R.S. Sharma and D.D. Kosambi. D.D. Kosambi you must be knowing. Demand Draft Kosambi. No, not this way. Dharmanand something Kosambi. So D.D. Kosambi was pioneer of Marxist history writing in India. That he was the first historian who paid attention to economic history, we can say. In India, Marxist history writing is basically writing history from economic points of view. That is, accepting economy as the base and accepting the theories related to dialectical materialism and a class struggle. So consider the Rajput socio-political system. Consider the Rajput socio-political system. Rajput socio-political system as representing the classical phase, classical phase. What kind of phases are classical phases? The phases which provide norms for comparison. Things should be like this. So this is classical. That is forming a class in itself, whose features can be used for making comparative studies. Getting this idea? That is called a classical age. So consider in what way we have written the age of the Rajputs as the classical phase of the Indian feudalism. Classical phase of the Indian feudalism. Classical phase of the Indian feudalism. Then write the Rajputs placed utmost importance or significance or emphasis on, utmost emphasis on on land. See, in feudal society generally land is sacred. Land, that is possession of land as a mark of honor. Land as a mark of honor. Even today many people don't sell their lands. Why? The feudal notions. If family land is not only an economic asset, it is also a mark of social respect, recognition and a prestige. Have you ever been familiar with this kind of notions? जमीन बिक गई मतलब घर की इज्जत बिक गई. ठीक है. So land as a mark of honor, comma, family honor, family traditions or family honor, no, largely vested in women in feudal societies. Getting this? Family honor. So for the protection of family honor, any sacrifice can be made. Family honor and some romantic, right? And don't look at me while writing this word. And some romantic notions related to warfare. Write it in simple word. Some romantic notions related to warfare. I think we all are familiar with these romantic notions. Not to invade an enemy who is armless, extend shelter to anyone and everyone, and make great sacrifices for fulfilling your promises. Have you ever heard of this kind of things? No? Rajput notions. So at times they become victim of this in the battlefields. Then change your paragraph and write. Some important clans of the Rajputs. Some important clans of the Rajputs are ARE. Some important clans of the Rajputs are mentioned below. Some important clans of the Rajputs are mentioned below. We have many clans, but some important clans. Just mention the clans and their area, and if there is any ruler who is of any importance, we can mention the name. It is not ignoring the Rajput history. Let me tell you that in UPSC we pay attention to the things which are of all India significance. So if you are preparing for Rajasthan civil services, then be thorough with all the rulers, all the dynasties, their achievements, all the battles. But in all India examination, in all India services, why a person from Odisha or Tamil Nadu be expected to be thorough with history of Rajputana? I hope understand this. So it is something like this, that when the Indian National Congress was founded early 1885, so it decided that it will take up only those issues in which entire nation has a say. So most of the time people in the classes are offended, my history not included. This is not our fault. We are going to follow all India norms, so in which many things can be neglected. So unless until the things are of all India significance or importance and UPSC ask questions related to them, we are not going to include. ठीक है ना? With all due respect to your regional sentiments, your what we can say cultural sentiments. So right here first, Pratiharas. Pratiharas are something very important. So we have talked about them quite extensively. बाकी आप पढ़ते रहो. You also have accessibility to books and sources, including social media. ठीक है. Read your personal history and feel glorified. Who is stopping you? No one. ठीक है. तो क्या लिखा आपने? Pratiharas. In bracket write done. D-O-N-E. Done, or just tick mark. Done. If you want to write it in more explicit words, write ho chuka. H-O, ho, C-H-U-K-A, ho chuka. When? I hope you remember. Yes. Then write, after Pratiharas, write Parmaras. the Parmaras. Parmar. Parmar. Can you tell me their area? Right, Malwa. Malwa. Malwa region. Parmaras, Malwa region. Can you tell me some important rulers belonging to this clan? Raja Bhoj and his uncle Munj. So right, important rulers Munj, M-U-N-J, Munj and Bhoj. And here Bhoj Parmar, right? Bhoj is also known as a scholar king of India. Bhoj is also known as a scholar king of India. Why known as a scholar king of India? It seems that he was preparing for civil services. Who? Raja Bhoj. Now he has written book on almost every subject. Mathematics, physics, chemistry, in whatever form they existed. So this Bhoj belonging to Parmara dynasty is known as a scholar king of India. So there is a language also called Bhojpuri. There is an area called Bhojpur, and go to Bhopal, you will find the airport named after him. Anyone from MP here? Feel good about Bhoj? Okay. Which place? Dhar. Dhar, that was in Malwa region, was the capital. Right. Parmaras are particularly known for their conflict with Chalukyas. Chalukyas of Kalyani. Their conflict with the Chalukyas of Kalyani. Do you remember Chalukyas of Kalyani? A dynasty founded by Talab II. So there is a in our history we have many love stories, which may not be important, but we have many poets writing about them, making them important, isn't it? So in the context of Mahajanpadas, if you remember, we have Bhas, a later author, writing on the love relationship between a ruler of Vatsa, Udain, and daughter of Chandapradyota. What was her name? Vaso Datta. And the book is known as Swapna Vaso Datta. It's a drama, and Bhas is accepted as first Sanskrit dramatist. And this book is his only surviving book. All these things as part of literature, as part of culture. Likewise, in Kalidas also we have this theme prominently occurring, that Kalidas not only Meghdootam but also writing some love stories based on. So can you tell me anything like this? There is a ruler Pushyamitra Sunga, and there is a ruler who was his son and successor. After Pushyamitra Sunga we have anyone? Agni Mitra. And there was a lady called Malvika. Yes, Malvika and Agni Mitra. And then that famous Abhigyan Shakuntalam. I hope you have received that list. Have you received? The list of books and their themes. That is again a love story. Likewise, Mrich Katikam, a little clay cart attributed to Shudrak. That is again a love story of a poor Brahman. First Brahman, then poor. Poor Brahman. With a rich quotation. Rich and quotation. See the contrast. So, Shudrak. Likewise, we have another pair, Munj and Mrinalvati. Have you ever heard of them? Munj, the same Munj. And Mrinalvati. Mrinal, I think you can write. And if you can write Mrinal, you can also write Vati. If you read together, you have Mrinalvati. So, Munj and Mrinalvati. Mrinalvati was daughter of Talab II. And Munj fell in love with her, she fell in love with Munj. That was something not liked by Talab II. He invaded, defeated and killed Munj. But then there is a concept of Badla. Revenge was taken by Bhoj Parmar. So this love story also became a bone of contention. Apart from geostrategic and geopolitical factors conflict between the two. Then write, after Parmaras, write Solankis. 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 Solankis are also called Chaulukyas. Not Chalukyas properly, but Chaulukyas. Chau. Chau. Chaulukyas. Write their area, Gujarat. Anybody from Gujarat here? Chaulukyas, Gujarat. And see, we have mention of some rulers, very powerful. One such ruler is Bhima II. There is one more ruler mentioned as Mool Raj. Now what? The same thing is said about both. That Mool Raj defeated Muhammad Ghori. Bhima II also defeated Muhammad Ghori. Whether Mool Raj or Bhima II same or different, that I don't know. I tried to find but could not. And I'm not going to make a special study of the Rajput history of Gujarat because that is not needed. So you also don't try to find out. If the question is who of the following is known for defeating Muhammad Ghori, if in the option you find either Bhima or Mool Raj, go for Mool Raj and Bhima. Then Bhima II also defeated Prithviraj Chauhan. The Rajput dynasties kept on fighting among themselves. They had their romantic notions. After celebration of Dasahara every year, there was what? Time for war. And if you are a Rajput prince and if you live beyond 18 years of age, you are not living life of what? Life like a Rajput. 18 साल की उम्र तक आते आते what should be your fate? Veergati. Do you understand what is called Veergati? Mar jao. So after that, what is going to live? Not you. Your achievements, your bravery, your stories. So we like stories and we also try to become part of the stories, and we generally take interest in stories about us. So don't you think that this storytelling is very powerful? Literature is very powerful. Simply because posterity is going to remember you and going to tell your stories, you are not living your life fully. You are making sacrifices for creating stories. So stories are important in life. What do you think? Don't you think you are also here to create some new stories? What kind of stories? Qualifying this exam, no? And founding your dynasty in most of the cases. A new dynasty of civil servants in democratic India. Okay. And the posterity is going to remember you. You know, first to qualify civil services in my family was my great-great-grandfather who lived in the first quarter of 21st century. I am talking about you. I am talking about you people. And then after that it became a tradition. Every generation, no? Top rank or among top 10. Now write. So write here ki Solanki ruler, Bhima II, Mool Raj, Bhima II, or in bracket you can also write Mool Raj, known for defeating Muhammad Ghori, known for defeating Muhammad Ghori. Right, Bhima II is also known for defeating Prithviraj Chauhan. Bhima II is also known for defeating Prithviraj Chauhan. Now write Chauhans, fourth dynasty, Chauhans. Their area was Ajmer, Delhi. Delhi you must be knowing. Have you ever visited Delhi? No. Okay. ORN, Old Rajendra Nagar, is part of Delhi, but not Delhi in itself. So Delhi, Ajmer. And here we have the most important ruler as Prithviraj Chauhan III. He was third ruler in the same dynasty with the same name. So Prithviraj III. And we know about Prithviraj Chauhan, and we are going to talk about it later on as part of battles of Tarain, 1191 and 1192. Now, do one thing. 1, 2, 3, 4. All these 4 are fire clans. So make a note here. All the above mentioned clans are fire clans. That is Agni Kula. Fire clans. Write Agni Kula. Don't write Pushpa. Pushpa, the fire. There was a movie, no? Yes. You are not writing that. You are writing Agni Kula. Then write Gahadawalas. One of my teacher used to say, it is basically Gahadwal, but we have anglicized teachers also. Gahadawalas. Right? Gahadwals. Gahadwalas or Gahadwals. You can also write Rathors in bracket. Gahadwals and Rathors perhaps same. Rathors. And here we have a very famous ruler. Capital was Kannauj. The area was Kannauj and the ruler was Jaichand. Jaichand, a well-known ruler, a well-known rival of Prithviraj Chauhan, and here also we have a well-known story which historians don't believe in. And what is that story? Of course, Rajput dynasties kept on fighting among themselves, and there were rivalries, there is no doubt about it, but at times those rivalries were presented as episodes of personal humiliation also, or personal celebration also. So we know personal celebration of Prithviraj Chauhan, that how daughter of Jaichand, Sanjogita, and we know all this episode, no need to talk about it. But historians generally don't believe in this story, or it may be many stories like this at that time, because such things were not unknown in what we can say Rajput system. And even in the 8 forms of marriages, if you remember, in our culture 8 forms of marriages came to be accepted. 4 of them, all of them legitimate, but 4 of them accepted, appreciated, and 4 criticized. In those forms of marriages which were criticized, we have marriages like Rakshasa, Paisacha, Rakshasa marriage, Paisacha marriage. So, in which women were forcefully captured. In some cases their relatives were killed also. So, when we have this kind of practices, what was done by Prithviraj Chauhan at this time was not something very unknown. Even if he abducted a Sanjogita, or Sanjogita deliberately or on her accord fled with him, that again remain mysterious. We exactly don't know what was the situation. Then write the next. Write Chandelas. Chandelas. Do you know about Chandelas? Which area? Right, Bundelkhand. Bundelkhand, Baghelkhand. Bundelkhand, Baghelkhand. Chandelas. And their area was known as, at that time, or in historical literature mentioned as Jejak Bhukti. So write the area also known as Jejak Bhukti. Bhukti is land, Jeja perhaps was the founder. So Jejak Bhukti, that is land of Jeja. Possibly that is the origin of this name. And right, Chandelas are particularly known for their conflict with Prithviraj Chauhan. The Chauhan Chandel conflict, their conflict with Prithviraj Chauhan. in this context we can mention, in this context, keep on writing in the same, in this context we that is we the people of India can mention the famous battle of Mahoba, Mahoba, famous battle of Mahoba. Have you ever heard of Mahoba Garh ki ladai in our culture? Alha Udal, and we have folk songs related to them. When I was kid, not in the distant past, in the recent past only, so we had professional Alha singers. Alha, and the kind of music used, that is called Bir Ras, Bir Gatha, and the bravery of these two brothers in a poetic form with music, Alha singers. So इतनी बहादुरी आ जाती थी सुनते सुनते कि मन करता था कि जूता उठा के बगल वाले को पीट दें. That was the impact of that music and the expressions used by the singers, the words used, the style displayed, all these things were quite motivating. So are you familiar with this form of folk art that is called Alha? No, particularly people in the eastern UP, Bihar, and in Rajputana also. So Mahoba Garh, in which, continue writing now, Mahoba, battle of Mahoba, in which important role played by Alha and Udal. Alha, Allah, Alha and Udal, 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 two brothers. So they belong to Chandela and they fought against Prithviraj Chauhan, and they came to be celebrated as warriors, as part of folklore or as part of folk singing. Then write, Chandelas are also associated with, Chandelas are also associated with, Chandelas are also associated with the temples of Khajuraho. The temples of Khajuraho. You may have heard of these temples. Temples of Khajuraho. 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 Then write Tomaras. 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 So write Delhi. Delhi was the area of Tomars. But these Tomars perhaps were under Prithviraj Chauhan. And the Tomar ruler also died along with Prithviraj Chauhan in the second battle of Tarain. His name was Govindraj. So Tomaras in Delhi. Just know this much, and this much about the Rajput clans. Now let us proceed further, and this topic is over. Now we are going to talk about general aspects, and the way they are asking questions, these aspects are now more important than the traditional aspects for both PT and mains. So what now we are going to discuss is something like gravy. I hope understand that is gravy. So if there is any a question on the Rajput political system, mention this. Rajput social system, mention this. And if not about the Rajputs, about the about the Chalukyas of Badami or about any other rulers, Palas, mention the same, because everywhere we have the same tendencies which are known as feudal tendencies. So this is time for us to talk about feudalism, particularly Indian feudalism, and we can also contrast this feudalism with the European feudalism, because we are in the habit of comparing things with Europeans, or they are in the habit of evaluating our things and passing some judgments related to them. So Indian secularism somehow different from Western secularism. Indian federation somehow different from Western federation. Likewise, Indian feudalism also somewhat different from European feudalism. So make a heading and write Indian feudalism. Indian feudalism. And write medieval ages, AGES, generally we use plural. Medieval ages are ARE. Generally, medieval ages are generally identified with the rise and growth of feudal, FEUDAL, feudal tendencies, or traits also we can write, feudal tendencies in almost all aspects, of the life, that is social, political. So feudalism is a multi-dimensional concept. We can't define feudalism like we can't define capitalism. We can simply identify some characteristics of capitalism. Likewise, we can identify some characteristics of feudalism in different areas or in different walks of life. If there is any question, what do you mean by feudalism? Mention those characteristics. Even otherwise, nowadays we don't believe in the defining things. That is what? Respect for intellectual liberty. Postmodern tendencies are not about defining things. They are about describing things and not about defining. Because when we define something, we try to impose our understanding upon others. Okay, this is like this is what I understand, and you should also understand it like that. But we have some concepts which are very dynamic, and history is evolving, societies are evolving, and forms and nature constantly changing. So when that is the case, how we can have any definition with long-term validity? So the capitalism Marx was familiar with is no longer existing today. The nature of a state Marx was familiar with, no longer existing today. So capitalism transformed itself, a state transformed itself. So any definition of capitalism offered by what we can say previous generations may not be true for our purpose. And that is the reason that while claiming what we can say, or while subscribing to some postmodern tendencies, we now accept that words are meaningless, and their meaning is determined by their context, and contexts are ever changing. It means words are also changing their meaning continuously, and same is the case with the definitions which have been given by the previous generations. That they look at the things from a particular social ideological point of view. So democracy was like that for them, not for us. Clear? So that's why now we have moved beyond the age of definitions and quotations. So even in essay writing, those things are no longer appreciated. Right? Earlier we used to write essays like this. No? First, if you have to write on any theme, first a quotation, and then explanation of that quotation. The issue is what you are writing on your own, nothing. You are explaining a quote. So you can create an impression that you have borrowed your ideas. Yes, we can still quote people while supporting our contentions. But it is not that we first quote and then we start explaining the quote. then we are not writing in our own language, which is clear-cut instruction by UPSC that answers must be written in your own language. But then romantic notions are there in the market. We think that by quoting we are doing something good. That is not the case. You think that you are displaying the power of your memory, that I know this much. That is not needed at all. Spirit must be conveyed, and that too in your own language, not in the borrowed language or not in the language of quotations. These are old approaches, not in harmony with recent intellectual tendencies or recent trends in the intellectual world. So we are not going to define feudalism. We are not also going to accept existing definitions. We are simply going to take note of certain tendencies, certain characteristics displayed by feudal societies across the world, including India. Is this position clear? So, in what way we have written? All aspects of the life. Right, this is true. This is true. What you have written is true. This is true in case of Indian history as well. This is true in case of Indian history as well. So medieval ages in almost all areas of the world with well accepted historical traditions. So this is true in case of India as well. In bracket, right? That a country with well established historical traditions, well established or well studied historical traditions. Just close the bracket. See, there is a concept, old world, new world. Are you familiar with these concepts? Old world, new world. New world we know. And the moment we know the new world, we can easily identify the old world. New world, Americas. America, North America, South America, maybe Australia also, New Zealand, newly discovered continents and islands. That is new world. So if we exclude the new world from the existing world, what we are left with? We are left with the old world. So old world, mostly Asia and Europe. Asia and Europe. And we have ancient European civilizations like Greek, Roman, and then we have Persian civilization, then we have Indian civilization with Indus Valley, then we have Chinese civilizations. So this is the old world, that is a part of Europe and this vast stretch of Asia, which includes many. Now these areas in the world history today are accepted as areas with well established historical traditions. So generally when we talk about medieval age and medieval history, we don't talk about Australia, we don't talk about America, we don't talk about New Zealand, we talk about Europe, we talk about Asia, we talk about China, we talk about India. So the whole idea of medieval age is true in case of the old world, not in case of the new world. So feudal traits we generally do not find in America. In world history, that is going to play a very important role. We are going to discuss it later. So feudalism as part of medievalism in almost all areas of the world with well known or well studied historical traditions. So it was in Persia also, it was in China, it was in Europe, it was in India. Forms may be different. Clear? Then resume your writing and write. Right, in a feudal system, socio-political hierarchies in a feudal system, socio-political hierarchies. In a feudal system, socio-political hierarchies, comma, 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 economic status, comma, cultural norms and values, customs and traditions, all are determined, all are determined as per the possession, POSSESSION, as per the or according to the possession of land. So land is central idea. How respectful you are, it depends upon how much land in your possession. What is your position in the political hierarchy? Again, depends upon possession of land. So your social status, your political status, your economic status, norms, values, customs, traditions, practices, all around this central idea, that is a possession of land. And that's why when we have modern capitalism and when we have industrial transformation, the idea of possession of land no longer that much important, and so capitalism was a direct threat to a feudalism. Is it clear? Is it break time also, as I can infer from your facial expressions? You start making faces after some time. क्या है, बस बहुत हुआ, ठीक है. We also have land, but we are not feudal lords. ठीक है, इस तरह के आने लगते हैं आइडियाज दिमाग में, वो चेहरे पे दिखने लगते हैं. तो ले लो ब्रेक, आप ही का है, ठीक है. After the break, we are meeting to continue with this. So, welcome back. I think we have started with Indian feudalism. Right here, what all you have written? As per the possession of land or lands. Then write that Indian feudalism, in bracket write a term coined by R.S. Sharma. Indian feudalism, this is an expression by R.S. Sharma, is Indian feudalism is at times compared, Indian feudalism is at times compared with the European feudalism. In this context, the following differences can be easily noticed. It is like Indian federation being compared with American or European notions of federation, Western federation rather. So everywhere we have almost same logic, that anything that was in the West was accepted as more authentic version, and anything that was in the East was accepted as a poor imitation, or at times what we can say not given the same category. So Indian Federation is no longer a federation. It is quasi-federation or something like this. Indian secularism is not a secularism. So Indian feudalism also, according to some Western observers, not feudalism because it lacked some of the features of European feudalism. So what are those features which are highlighting the differences? Right, first point here. Right, European feudalism had had more formal more formal hierarchy more formal hierarchy and rituals and ceremonies rituals and ceremonies rituals and ceremonies. So have you ever heard of knights, horsemen? Then what? Have you ever heard of duke of, earl of? We have king, hereditary king, but then we have earls, dukes, and they are also small kings. There is a very important, very what we can say strict hierarchy. That hierarchy cannot be violated. So right, in this context, that is in the context of more formal, in this context we can mention distinctions like, we can mention distinctions or feudal distinctions or titles like earls, 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 dukes, DUKES, dukes. Have you heard of archduke? No, ARCH, archduke, knights, KNIGHTS, knighthood was given to even some Indians, no? One such Indian was, yes, Gurudev Rabindranath Thakur, who returned this title when we have Jallianwala Bagh massacre. Then right, and ceremonies like homage, HOMAGE, homage. This ceremony was associated with European feudalism. In Indian feudalism, we don't have ceremonies, we don't have such well established hierarchy and such distinctions. Though we have titles, feudal titles, Ranak, Rawat, Samanta, Mahasamanta, Raja, Maharaja, Dhiraj, Rajaon ka Raja. All this we have, but we don't have general uniformity, and what feudal titles are there, but not in that strict fashion. And homage ceremony was a ceremony in which we have formal expressions, that we have vassals expressing their loyalty, king assuring them that he would be defending them, and then there was hugging and in European style kissing, all those kind of things. Kissing is what? Generally not accepted in our culture as a form of greet. When we greet someone, we generally don't kiss. We have our own ways, namaste. But in the West, और कुछ नहीं तो So this was there in feudal system also. And then kissing of the feet also. This kind of ceremonies were there. That is in order to establish subordinate position of the vassals and superior position of their lords or masters. Don't you think in India we the people of India are almost silent in the matters related to expressing emotions? We are more silent than Europeans. In Europe or in the West, you will find a birthday party. And in the birthday party, suddenly someone would be standing up to deliver a lecture. ठीक है? This man, meet this man, I met this man long back and this is cheers और पता नहीं क्या क्या. हमारे यहाँ से काम चला लेते हम लोग. कब से जानते हैं? जानने वाले हैं मेरे भी. तो and you people have become more expressive now. My generation was almost silent generation. ठीक है? तो ये जो आप बोलते रहते ना, मम्मी आई लव यू, पापा आई लव यू, अगर हम बोल देते अपने जनरेशन में ना, तो मम्मी पापा पगला जाते. ठीक है? व्हाट हैज हैपेंड टू यू. ठीक है? तो हमारी जनरेशन तो उससे भी नहीं बोल पाती थी जिससे बोलना था एक्चुअली. आप तो उससे भी बोल देते हो जिसे नहीं बोलना. ठीक है? सो साइलेंट जनरेशन एंड साइलेंट कल्चर. सो वी फील, we don't express. We feel we don't express and we take things for granted. That is our cultural characteristics. बड़ा भाई छोटा भाई है, बड़ा भाई छोटा भाई को कभी नहीं बोलेगा कि I miss you and I love you my brother. ठीक है? When you are not there I was something like this, I was missing you so much. हालांकि ये अब आ रहा है, हमारे यहाँ भी आ रहा है धीरे धीरे. ठीक है? वो पता है कि if there are two brothers, so love and bond is natural and that is going to be there and it goes without expressing, isn't it? But that is not the case in the Western societies. They are more vocal, they are more articulate, they rely upon words. We simply rely upon what? Expressions, something. भाई को देखे मुस्कुरा दिया दूर से. ठीक है भाई, हाँ भाई वो भी समझ गया, आप भी समझ गए कि everything is good. Is it the case even today, or you people have become more expressive? Or you people have started demanding expressions? कि महसूस करते हो, बोलो भी तो. Are you insisting upon these things now? कभी कहा भी करो. These things are becoming more and more popular, but in the old time, ठीक है, people got married, they had kids, they were a husband wife, they died together, they lived together, and they never said I love you. They never said I love you to each other. ठीक है? तो बल्कि पब्लिकली उनसे बात भी नहीं करते थे. पब्लिकली बाकी सबसे बात होगी, उनसे बात नहीं होगी. तो दिस नोशंस आर चेंजिंग, दिस प्रैक्टिसेस आर changing nowadays. ठीक है? Nowadays there is increasing demand for what is known as public display of affection also. ठीक है? That is also supposed to be what? A way of legitimizing relations, that is providing sanctity to them and forcing or what? Creating some niche of acceptability for them. So Indian feudalism and European feudalism, these differences may be cultural, but these distinctions can be noticed. Clear? Then right next, second point. Right? In the European feudalism, we find MANOR, manorial system. Manorial system, that is MANORS, manors, manorial system, in which the landlords lived their MANORS, in which the feudal lords lived in their manors, that is feudal castles, manors, on the same, built on the same piece of land, based on the same piece of land. So we have a huge area. In that area we can have a feudal castle, and in that castle we have manors, which basically residential complex for the lord. Right? In India we generally have, or we generally find, absentee landlordism. In India we generally find absentee landlordism. Castles the, but mostly find absentee landlordism. That was not part of the ritual. That was not part of the formal organization. We have castles, but not necessarily on the same piece of land. Clear? Then right, in India, in European feudalism, we have the system of serfdom. Have you ever heard of serfdom? Serfs were basically agricultural slaves. They were, in which, this we write, in which the peasants, in bracket you can write serfs. In European feudalism, we find the system of serfdom in which the peasants, in bracket serfs, were tied to the land, tied to the lands or land, tied to the land. So when land sold, serfs also sold. So we have two types of slaves, serfs, agricultural and domestic. And these people were associated with this manor. So when suppose A is the owner, they are serving A, and if A sells this and now B is the owner, they are serving B. So master may be changed, but not they. They are there as part of this manorial system. So we have domestic as well as agriculture. They are tied to the land. If land sold, if property sold, they are sold along with the property. So it also provided them some measure of what we can say economic security. And that's why when serfdom was abolished in Russia in 1861 and a program of land redistribution was not taken efficiently, we have many peasants in Russia who preferred the old system in place of the new, because in the new system, though they were free now, but they lacked assets. And moreover, they had to pay some taxes to compensate the landlords, which are known as redemption taxes. So, tied to the land. In India, peasants were never tied to the land. They were free. So, whenever exploitation increased, they simply changed their location. They changed their master. So, we have greater latitude or greater freedom of movement in case of Indian feudalism. Right in bracket, in Indian feudalism, peasants were free. Peasants were free. In Indian feudalism, the peasants were free. Then write one more point here. Right, in the European feudalism, the landlords or the masters controlled, even the personal life, of the serfs. Right, no such control was exercised in India. No such control was exercised in India. No such control was exercised in India. Now, what does it mean when we say control on personal life? Marriage, children. Getting this idea? Even some other issues also. Everything decided by the master. But in India, we have never permitted anyone to control our marriages and reproductive behavior, isn't it? And that's why we have today what is known as demographic dividend. So, are we capitalizing on this? So, there are some areas where nobody can interfere. That was not the case in Europe. So, those societies today they call themselves free societies, but real freedom in the medieval time existed in India. That peasants were never tied to the land and there was no control of the masters on the personal life of the. So it means social freedom, personal freedom as well as economic freedom. That is freedom of entrepreneurship, we can say, that if you are not happy with one master, change your master. No? Change your paragraph and write. On the basis of the above mentioned differences, on the basis of the above mentioned differences, on the basis of the above mentioned differences, Ranbijay Singh Jadhav and others asking something. What is a feudalism? That I don't know. I think we have spent around 10 minutes that we cannot define a feudalism because it is a system which has taken different forms in different parts of the world. Ranbijay and party. So that's why we are taking note of characteristics of feudalism. Characteristics of feudalism. What kind of characteristics were there? Still, I have given you something tentative, that a system in which social status, economic status, political status, everything is determined on the basis of possession of land. I hope this is clear to Ranbijay and others. Is this clear? So every time it is not the case that we need to define things. At times we need to perceive things on the basis of features or characteristics. Yes. Exploitation is exploitation. What do you mean by always exploitation? They were sold. Yes, always exploited. They were not free. In Indian feudalism, peasants free, except in some pockets. Except in some pockets which witnessed what we can say worst form of feudalism, and that too not in medieval time but in modern time under the impact of colonialism, that is in the Odisha region. There we find this kind of institutions that was European influence, basically extension of European influence, that some peasants came to be tied to the land, but that was not the usual practice in our country. Pardon? No, we are not going to link it with European feudalism. We are going to link it with colonialism and its impact later on as part of modern Indian history. In general, before colonial interferences in our culture, we don't have this tradition of peasants being tied to the land. We have examples of peasants migrating from one village to another in search of new land, in search of new landlords, and we have overlapping claims. Even landlords had no absolute right in India, because most of the time the right to private property in land did not exist, and we have overlapping claims. So landlords have their claims, kings have their own claims. Village community also played some role. Village community also played some role. Peasants also had their customary rights. So here things were not legally well defined. We have some overlapping rights, and absolute ownership of land was not there in our country, something that also confused modern land revenue administrators like Lord Cornwallis when they people were thinking about permanent settlement. Got this idea? Meanwhile, sir, please tell us any trick to learn these different dynasties and different rulers, because these are overlapping to each other. That's why I made that chart. So my name is Wasim. My name is Wasim, and on the road if you find another Wasim, are you going to ask about UPSC preparation? That person, that okay, you are Wasim, okay, so tell us which NCERTs are good. In our day-to-day life, we can easily differentiate. We can easily deal with such complexities and such overlapping. But in history, we just, whenever we come across two Chalukyas, we are confused. Because getting confused in history is cool, it is fashion. And it shows that you are modern. That is not the case. If you don't understand history, you are neither ancient nor medieval nor modern. So, no trick, my dear. There is no trick, just stay in touch, stay in contact. And don't be over ambitious that if you read something, you are going to remember it today itself. That will kill your time, efforts, energy, everything. So no trick, except just stay in touch. Read, revise on regular basis. No such a trick. We are not going to have mnemonics for all them. Mnemonics may help us when the data is limited. On the basis of mnemonics, we cannot prepare for Indian civil services, in which analytical questions are asked not only in main examination but also in preliminary examination. Increase in volume. I have increased my volume. Am I audible to all of you? So, is it clear now? So let me tell you with all force of my increased volume now that please don't try to find tricks. Be a little laborious, be a little consistent, stay in touch without being bothered about the capacity of your mind. Mind is very powerful device. Do you have any trick for learning language when you were a kid? No. Allow your mind to work in its natural way. Most of the time we create unnecessary anxiety and we overburden our mind with unrealistic expectations, and that kills everything. Not only the capacity of our mind but also the joy of the preparation. So be a little humble, be a little simple and accept your limitations. Sir, as in India we know, it seems that I have developed some problems in my eyes now. Sir, as in India we no more have feudal system. Does it still exist in Europe or is revoked? See, the system is not there, but the attitudes, ideas, emotions associated with them is still there. And that is the reason why some of you are preparing for civil services. Because you need power. Because you feel insecure. Otherwise, capitalism is not about power. Capitalism is about money. Now you can say money is power. So some of you may be entrepreneurs. Some of you may be what we can say Sundar Pichai, or what we can say that the person who has bought Twitter recently, Elon Musk. But you are not trying in that direction. Why? What is the reason? Feudal mindset, power. You need a power. Clear? So status, no? Status. पैसा तो कोई भी कमा लेता है. You want some status. Status belong to feudal thinking. Capitalism is about asset, not about status. Clear? Yes. So we don't have the system, but go to the rural India and even in urban India, you can find feudal mindset and feudal notions playing very important role in shaping the day-to-day life experiences of the people. Is it clear? So informally it is prevalent, or its traces, not the whole system, its traces are prevalent everywhere in the world. But more in India, less in Europe, because those societies are supposed to be more democratized, more liberal. In India, we have mixed our modernity with tradition, and as part of tradition, we have accepted some norms and values related to patriarchy also, related to feudalism also. And all these things in the name of having a tradition. Is this position clear? Is my voice clear now? Okay. So we have talked about the differences. So what we have started writing, on the basis of the above mentioned differences, some observers or some scholars negate, negate, the prevalence of feudalism, negate the prevalence of feudalism, prevalence of feudalism in India, prevalence of feudalism in India. See, even Karl Marx, who made observations related to Indian culture and civilization, he used feudal system and feudalism, this expression, quite frequently in case of other societies. But when he started talking about India, he did not talk about feudal mode of production. He talked about Asiatic mode of production, not feudal mode of production, because even Karl Marx to some extent accepted that feudalism with all its attributes and essence existed in Europe and not in Asia, but Asia had a different kind of mode of production that can be better known as Asiatic mode of production than a feudal mode of production. So some observers negate the prevalence of feudalism in India, but scholars like R.S. Sharma, he will not stop, but scholars like R.S. Sharma, and here we have the same argument as we find in case of Indian Federation, कि we are also federation. Just understand that argument, because the essence of federal system is present in Indian constitution also, that we have two tiers of government, we have division of subjects, we have independent judiciary, though we have unitary features, but those features can be understood on the basis of the specific needs and specific historical experiences of India. Getting this idea? So we do have feudalism in the medieval time, because the essence of feudalism is present in India. Form may vary, and the variance in form can be explained on the basis of regional differences, cultural differences. Is this clear? So right here, but scholars like R.S. Sharma refute this argument. Which argument? That there was no feudalism in India. Refute this argument on the basis of the presence of the essence of feudalism. Someone who was asking for what is feudalism should pay attention here. Essence of feudalism, which is landed hierarchy, forming basis for exploitation. Landed hierarchy forming basis for exploitation. Landed hierarchy forming basis for exploitation. Is this position clear? Manorial means associated with a manor. Manor was what? The whole feudal complex or system in which we have feudal lords and serfs living together in different capacities and having different relations with the land. Clear? Then now change your paragraph and write some of the important characteristics of feudalism in India. Some of the important characteristics of feudalism in India. Some of the important characteristics of feudalism in India. Some of the important characteristics of feudalism in India, which had become quite evident. Which had become quite evident. Which had become quite evident by the beginning of the early medieval age, 800 to 1200. By the beginning of the early medieval age are mentioned below. Are mentioned below. Here we are going to identify aspects: political, economic, socio-cultural, that is political dimension of feudalism, economic dimension of feudalism, socio-cultural dimension of feudalism, and how feudalism came to create a typical situation in India in which we have not only foreign invasions but also the defeat of Indian powers in the hands of the invaders, paving way for the establishment of Delhi Sultanate in due course of the time. One more thing that we should know is that whatever characteristics we are going to see, they did not come to an end with the establishment of Delhi Sultanate and restoration of political unity and centralized system of administration. There were always strong undercurrents related to feudalism beneath what we can say the centralized pretensions. And whenever we have a weak ruler at the center, feudal tendencies started manifesting themselves. So after establishment of Delhi Sultanate, we have alternate phases of centralization and decentralization. Is this position clear? And feudal norms and values continued, and they continue even today, and very much part of colonial system. And if we identify the evils of Indian economy and Indian society, they are related not only to medievalism but also related to colonialism. And that's why India's socio-economic and political transformation became a more difficult task than the countries without colonial interferences. Make political. First heading, political. A, political, and write 1, 2, 3. Lack of LSCK, and this is from now Gupta period onwards. What was the situation? Lack of political unity, lack of political unity, and imperial, lack of political unity and imperial experiments, lack of political unity and imperial experiments. So 800 to 1200, we don't find empires like the Mauryan Empire or the Kushana Empire or the Gupta Empire, and not even empire like the Empire of Harsha. We have lack of imperial experiments and lack of political unity. Is this clear? Then write next. Can we call it political fragmentation also? In bracket you can write in the first point political fragmentation. Can it be accepted also as a political weakness of Indian subcontinent? Inviting foreign invaders? Yes, the same. Whenever we have any decline in the centralized authority or imperial system or any political vacuum, we have foreign invaders. So the same traits can also be presented as relative weaknesses of the Indian powers, which not only invited the foreign invaders but also ensured the defeat of the Indian powers. Now write the second point. Erosion, erosion, E-R-O-S-I-O-N, erosion of the royal authority, erosion of the royal authority, erosion of the royal authority due to emergence of vassals, V-A-S-S-A-L-S, emergence of vassals, V-A-S-S-A-L-S, vassals. In bracket you can write feudal lords, vassals, vassals with sovereign rights, in their territories, with sovereign rights in their territories. sovereign rights in their territories. The Satavahana system of land grants, creating local pockets of power. So it is not that we have a stronger political powers. We also have weaker rulers. Why weak? Because now their position challenged by the vassals. That is, they were lacking control. Then right next, can we call it political and administrative decentralization? Right here, political and administrative decentralization. Political and administrative decentralization. Political and administrative decentralization. Factionalism is a term which is generally used inside court. Factions. But then feudal lords were supposed to attend the royal court. So naturally it is part of factions. We can say political divisions and discords. Write the next point. Political divisions and discords. Political divisions and discords. D-I-S-C-O-R-D-S. Discords. Leading to internal conflicts. Leading to internal conflicts. Leading to internal conflicts. Clear? So at times we have feudal lords or vassals attacking their masters depending upon their relative strength and weaknesses. The chemistry which developed was not guided by what we can say any definite set of principles, but by political pragmatism. So quite often the vassals disobeyed the king. Then write next point. Have you written political decentralization? Then write erosion of erosion, erosion of the economic base, erosion of the economic base, erosion of the economic base of the estate, economic base of the estate, as the resources of the estate, as the resources of the estate came to be concentrated, came to be distributed rather, not concentrated, came to be distributed among the vassals, came to be distributed among the vassals. So now king was quite helpless because resources not available at his disposal. So the areas which were granted with land, all the power and resources. So taxation base we can say of the estate was eroding. Yes. If land given forever and with all rights. Feudatories are imposing taxes on their own, appropriating on their own, spending on their own without references to the king. They are supposed to pay some tributes, annual tributes to attend the royal court. But then who is going to ensure this? If king tries to ensure this, they can become rebellious. And king is not left with enough military power to enforce his will. That is the case. So we have diffusion rather of the resources or the power of the estate. Now some people say that it was not a decline, but rather it is diffusion of the process of estate formation. Diffusion of the process of estate formation. Everywhere local interests asserting themselves. And that was something that was good for what we can say overall political scenario of the country. So right here next point. Proliferation or diffusion. Proliferation. You can also write the word diffusion. Proliferation and diffusion of the process of state formation, proliferation and diffusion of the process of state formation. So in every part we have now utilization of resources, we have settled life, we have social differentiation, stratification, we have local magnates, we have local authorities asserting themselves at the cost of the central authority. So this way also things are at times perceived. Then write next point. Decline of bureaucracy, decline of bureaucracy, which is evident from the following, tendencies. Decline of bureaucracy which is evident from the following tendencies. So now we are going to write some sub points. Write the first sub point. Before we write this sub point, you people are going to join bureaucracy or you are aspiring to join bureaucracy. Can you tell me some characteristics of bureaucracy? Some features of bureaucracy? Do we find hierarchy in bureaucracy? Hierarchy is part of feudal system also. But here hierarchy is based on talent. That's why we have open examination. But in feudal system, it was based on heredity. It means in bureaucratic system, we don't have acceptance of the principle of heredity and appointments are made on the basis of talent. Clear? Can you tell me the second? Next. What about the pain? What about the payment? Are you going to receive your payment in form of wheat or rice or what we can say gram or chana or buffaloes or donkeys? No. You will receive one message that this much amount has been credited. And there you will never receive message that it has been debited. Why? You are not going to spend your salary. You have other sources, that is Nazrana, Jabrana, Shukrana. Have you ever heard of this kind of things? What is Nazrana? Token of respect, something paid in anticipation. That is not work specific. मिलने गए, लौकी लिए गए. No, Loki became very popular in our culture due to Baba Ramdev, and there is a series now, Panchayat. So that is called Nazrana. That is, you are not demanding it, but people are paying it. बच्चों की मिठाई के लिए, ठीक है. दरोगा जी गए गांव में, बोले मुर्गा किसका है जी? बहुत बढ़िया है. Before he leaves, मुर्गा is captured. जाते समय उनको, सर ये, अरे क्या जरूरत थी इसकी? सर थी, आपको नहीं पता. Have you heard of this kind of things? That is Nazrana. And then what is Jabrana? If you don't pay, you will not get your work done. That is, itna chahiye, then I am going to assign. And what is Shukrana? That is after work. And that is also again not demanded. And you are asked something, आप खुश है ना? काम हो गया ना आपका? इसका मतलब क्या है? अब आप मुझे भी खुश कर दीजिए, ठीक है? तो आप बोलोगे हाँ हम खुश हैं, हम जा रहे हैं, तो लोग गाली देंगे आपको. Corruption has been well internalized by we, the people of India. That is why one reason that our fight against it is not very strong. Now, morally we have accepted it. ना IAS बेचारा, एक तो ये तनख्वाह को गाली सबसे पहले देना कि इतनी सैलरी से क्या होता है, अबे करना क्या है तुम की बताओ. और अगर ऐसा ही कुछ करना था तो बिकम एलोन मस्क, बिकम एंटरप्रेन्योर, अर्न मनी. ठीक है, बट दैट इज नॉट द केस. सैलरी से क्या होता है, तो ठीक है कुछ और कर ले भाई, फैकल्टी बन जा, उससे फिर बहुत कुछ होता है. ठीक है, तो दैट इज शुक्राना. सो payment in cash is something that is a feature. What if royal servants start receiving their payments in form of land grants, or soldiers started receiving payments in form of land grants? Don't you think you are transforming your officials into landlords or vassals, and you are transforming your soldiers into peasants? Now think of the total impact on the political system, total impact on the military strength of the empire. Yes, that is also part of the same, that is part of political fragmentation. So that is diffusion of the royal authority, emergence of local magnates, that is part of the same. So now we have this tendency. Can you tell me another characteristic of bureaucracy that we can understand? Because this is required for Mughals also, for Delhi Sultanate also. Someone was talking about impersonal loyalty. That is impersonality. Person is not important, office is important. Persons may come, may go. That is not affecting. So impersonality, that is, there is one related thing that is called transferability. Bureaucrats are transferred from one place to another, from one position to another. Can you resist transfers? No, you can't resist a transfers. And what if you are left at the same place throughout your life? Then what will happen? You may develop some hereditary claims, or you may develop what we can say some local connections, and you may also challenge the central authority. Clear? So bureaucracy is about cash payment, bureaucracy is about talent based on hierarchy, based on a talent, bureaucracy is about transferability, bureaucracy is about impersonality. When all these characteristics are compromised, can we say that there was decline of bureaucracy? This was exactly what happening in the early medieval time. It had started taking place since what we can say the time of the Satavahanas, but here now we have more and more tendencies in the same direction. So now you know the nature of the sub points which we are going to write. So which is evident from the following. Write the first point. Hereditary appointments. Hereditary appointments. Hereditary appointments. Then write salaries through land grants. Salaries through land grants. It became what? A general pattern. Salaries through land grants. Then write next. Next you write combination of offices or amalgamation of offices. That is, it is something like this, that more than one office is given to one person. So the person whose name is Harishen, associated with Prayag Prasasti, talks about himself also in some of the verses. He says that he is Sandhi Bigrahik, that is a person who was responsible for treaties and political relations. Sandhi Bigrahik, and he has been working, and he and his ancestors working or occupying this post for the last 3 generations. So even in the Gupta time we have hereditary appointments, and then receiving lands, and transferability and impersonality. These kind of features are yet not developed. Naturally, feudal lords are going to be now resisting any kind of transfers, because bureaucracy is no longer existing. Nobody is trying to transfer them also, because in the Satavahana land grants, as early as in the early Christian centuries, we have this kind of promises that royal servants and royal soldiers are not going to enter the donated areas. And we have this kind of notions ki jab tak suraj chand rahega, that is, so long as sun and moon live, this land belongs to that person. This kind of promises were made. And the curse of ancestors, that was also used. Curse of ancestors, that anyone in my generation, future generation, if ever tries to revoke these land grants, he would be inviting what? The curse of ancestors, and in his next birth he would become Chipkili, Chuha, Chuchundar, something like this. All these are different species which we find on the planet, and we think that they are living miserable life. चूहे की जिंदगी, क्या पता चूहे कितने मजे कर रहे हैं. ठीक है. So Chuchundar may have its own organization. Have you ever heard of Chuchundar? What is the English term for Chuchundar? Chuchundar is a creature, a small creature, tiny creature, bearing some resemblance with चूहा. चूहा, that is rat. चुचुंदर को क्या कहते हैं अंग्रेजी में, बताओ? नहीं पता? बस रैपिडेक्स नहीं पढ़ा? नहीं. चुचुंदर, गैंगस्टर, जो भी. सो कुत्ते की लाइफ, कुत्ते की मौत, सॉरी, कुत्ते की मौत क्या मानते हैं हम लोग? बुरा मानते हैं ना? डाइंग लाइक अ मैन एंड डाइंग लाइक अ डॉग. कुत्ते की मौत मरोगे. वी आर थ्रेटेंड एट टाइम्स. क्या पता कुत्ते की मौत ज्यादा अच्छी हो. इट इज आवर परसेप्शन. इट इज आवर परसेप्शन. कुत्ते आपस में बात करते होंगे, इंसानों की जिंदगी जियोगे तुम. ठीक है. दे मे हैव देयर परसेप्शन रिलेटेड टू वी द ह्यूमन बींग्स, बट वी हैव मोनोपोलाइज्ड ऑल द रिसोर्सेज एंड वी हैव डेवलप्ड नोशंस रिलेटेड टू बीइंग सुपीरियर क्रिएचर, और व्हाट वी कैन से. तो कुत्ते भी आपस में बतियाते होंगे नहीं, क्या इंसानों की जिंदगी जी रहे हो, यूपीएससी की तैयारी करना शुरू कर दे. कैन यू इमेजिन डॉग विदाउट एनी टेंशन, न कहीं ऑफिस, न कहीं जाना, न कहीं आना. ठीक है. खाना तो मिल ही जाता है उनको, खा ही लेते हैं वो कहीं ना कहीं से. तो हम कुत्ते की मौत और इंसानों की जिंदगी से डरते होंगे शायद. क्या लगता है आपको? डरते होंगे? ठीक है. पता नहीं, मुझे कैसे पता हो सकता. सो राइट, नेक्स्ट व्हाट यू आर राइटिंग? Yes. Right combination of offices. And then write next. Emergence of local magnets. Local magnets are not going to allow central authorities to have any say or any influence at the grassroots level. Even today it happens. So emergence of local magnets. Now write the next point. Next point in the main line, moving beyond subpoints. Right, decline of military. Decline of military. How? We don't have now a very strong central army, and now vassals came to have their own armies loyal towards them, not towards the king. So what will happen in the battlefield? See the weaknesses. Mobilization would become difficult, and even if you mobilize, in the battlefield there may be some problems related to command and operation. And in the battlefield you are going to lose what can be called central command. So that also was a weakness on the part of Indian forces. We have huge armies being defeated by small armies commanded by what we can say centralized commanders or central commanders. That may also be one important part of Indian weaknesses, explaining the defeat of the Indian powers in many situations. So right here, military weaknesses, as the vassals came to have their own armies. Continue writing in the same point. As the vassals came to have their own armies loyal towards them and not towards the king. And this was happening in almost every kingdom, and not towards the king. Not towards the king. It created problems. It created problems related to not only mobilization, it created problems related to not only mobilization, of the troops, but also related to, command in the battlefield. Who is the leader? Nobody knows. So the king is saying, move forward, let us attack. Vassals are saying, sir, tomorrow. आज थोड़ा सा काम था मुझे. So what will happen to the king when he lacks central army and resources of the state already diffused, commanded by local vassals? So this much about political. Can you manage 100-200 words on the political aspect of feudalism as it developed in India? And they also reflect, these points also reflect the weaknesses of Indian powers or weaknesses of Indian circumstances. Now write B. This was A. After A, usually we have B. Write B, and here make a heading economic aspect of feudalism. So here we are not going to talk about the nuances of feudal mode of production as explained by Karl Marx, that sometime later in some different context. Here the context is not suitable for understanding what is known as feudal mode of production. So here we are going to just take note of some general tendencies in the economic life. So you must be knowing about urbanization, second urbanization, which started around 6th century BC in the Gangetic plain as part of ancient. And then what happened? We have climax of urbanization during the early Christian centuries, when we have the arrival of foreign ruling groups and India's trading a connection with the Roman world. When we have Sangam age polities and Sangam age people having well developed trading relations through sea route, and North Indians utilizing some parts of the famous Silk route for maintaining that trade connection. Do you remember these things? You must have studied as part of ancient. It means the process of urbanization was a long-term historical process. From around 600 BC to around 600 AD, we have urbanizing tendencies in Indian subcontinent. We can say 1000 years. But after that, we have some tendencies towards de-urbanization. And we all understand that urbanization has some connection with expansion of economic activities, because an urban center is identified as a center in which there is primacy of non-agricultural activities, and more than 75% of the male population engaged in non-agricultural activities, and population density is not less than 400 persons per square kilometer, and total population is not less than 5,000. This is modern definition, census definition. We can forget this definition. We can capture the spirit of the definition, that urbanization is about non-agricultural activities, non-agricultural settlements, non-agricultural social classes. And such developments can take place only when we have surplus production in agriculture. That will lead to diversification of economic activities. This is what we call expansion of economic activities, which leads to diversification, which leads to urbanization, which leads to monetization, craft specialization, expansion of exchange network. Now all this started, what we can say, declining. So we don't have now expansion of economic activities in the early medieval time. We have contraction of economic activities. I think we should start with the most general point and then we can be more particular. So write the first point here. Contraction of economic activities. Contraction of economic activities. Contraction of economic activities. Then write next. Next, when we have contraction of economic activities, what will happen? Expansion is what? From agriculture to manufacturing to trade. That is from primary to secondary and tertiary sectors. That is called economic expansion. When we have contraction, we have what? From trade, manufacturing to agriculture, isn't it? So write increasing importance of land and agriculture. Increasing importance of land and agriculture. Increasing importance of land and agriculture, which is also evident from the increasing number of references to land and agricultural activities. Increasing number of references to the land and agricultural activities in the contemporary literature. In the contemporary literature. So it is not that in the past we have texts which were written with conscious objectives to reveal something. That is not the case. But unconscious and some tendencies may be constructed, that if we have increasing number of references to land and agriculture, we can infer that agriculture and agricultural activity is becoming more important in the life of the people. Clear? The second, third point you write. Decline of manufacturing activities. Decline of manufacturing activities. That is craft specialization on the lower side now. Decline of manufacturing activities, which is evident from the decreasing number of references to craft activities. So historians simply count the number, decreasing references to the craft activities. Right? We also find we have a very important supporting evidence. Anybody from Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, Indore? There is a place called Mandsaur. Is it near Indore? And 100 kilometer, 200 kilometer. Okay, that is not important. What is important is that at Mandsaur we have a temple, historically very important temple, and in that temple from the ancient time people used to make donations, and donations had become part of what we can say the culture of the time. So we have some people who made donations to a temple in Mandsaur, and while making donations they also introduced themselves, who they are, and they called themselves as silk weavers, that these people were silk weavers. They mentioned their ancestry, they mentioned their guild or shreni, and they also said that they have come from a place called Lat situated in Gujarat, and they have left their traditional occupation, that was silk weaving, and now they have settled as agriculturalists. So we don't have many instances, but this is supposed to be a very important example of the decline of craft activities, in which the silk weavers of Lat abandoned their traditional occupation and got settled as peasants, changing their place but still retaining their old identity of silk weavers and making donations in the name of their old guild. And that is also associated with what is known as proliferation of caste, and how the guilds got converted into different caste groups. That is very important, a process related to society, which we are going to discuss as part of socio-cultural, but I hope you understand this, that economic developments closely linked with social developments. So what we have written, there is we craft activities. We have written these two words also. We also find some instances of guilds, old guilds, OLD, old guilds or shrenis, old guilds or shrenis, leaving their traditional occupation, leaving their traditional occupation, leaving their traditional occupation and settling down as peasants, settling down as peasants, settling down as peasants. In this context, a noteworthy example is, in this context, a noteworthy example is, a noteworthy example is, is the Guild of Silk Weavers of Lat, Guild of Silk Weavers of Lat, L-A-T, Lat in bracket right, Gujarat, Lat, migrating to the Malwa region, just know this much, migrating to the Malwa region, in bracket you can write Mandsaur, M-A-N-D-S-A-U-R, Mandsaur, and we know the whole story, and this indicates what? Decline of craft activities. Then write the next point. What is exchange network? That is trading contacts. So right, collapse of India's exchange network. Collapse of India's exchange network. Collapse of India's exchange network. In bracket you can write trading relations. Trading relations. Exchange network, in bracket trading relations. Particularly related to India's external trade. Local trade is still continued. India's external trade. No, we have decline of Roman Empire and all external trade, and long distance trade, within the country. Long distance trade within the country. Though there are people who say that in some commodities like iron, salt, long distance trade continued, but there is a general understanding that there was a collapse of exchange network and long distance trade came to be adversely affected, and same was the case with India's external trade. The class is over. We are going to meet tomorrow.